Update: Tulsa survivors will fight the Oklahoma Supreme Court's dismissal, as they should. How can you do this? Attorneys for the last survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Remember, white people came in and they started murdering. It was the worst domestic state-sanctioned terrorism in the history of this country. That's what it was. 9/11 victims rightfully got a fund, compensation. It'll never bring their loved ones back. That was not state-sanctioned terrorism. This was. We took everything from them. They plan to continue their fight for reparations despite the Oklahoma Supreme Court's recent dismissal of their lawsuit. Lawsuit filed in 2020 by Viola Fletcher, Lessie Benningfield Randle, and Hughes Van Ellis sought restitution from the city of Tulsa and other defendants for one of the most devastating attacks on Black Americans in the country. What is so hard? Fletcher, Randle, Ellis, they were children at the time of the massacre. Ellis died last year at age 102, leaving Fletcher and Randle, both 110 and 109, respectively, as the last living plaintiffs in the suit. From May 31st to June 1st, 1921, a terrorist white mob destroyed the once prosperous, beautiful Black community of Greenwood, killing approximately 300 people. They're still digging up mass graves, leaving over 10,000 homeless over a false, heinously exaggerated allegation of sexual assault against a white woman by a Black man. This event also marked the first time bombs were dropped on U.S. soil. You've got to call it what it is. This is state-sanctioned domestic terrorism. In their lawsuit, the survivors contended that victims and descendants of those impacted by the massacre deserve reparations and cited a public nuisance law to argue that the deadly riots fostered racial divisions that still exist today in Tulsa. They also alleged that the city never gave anything back to the community it dubbed as Black Wall Street, despite profiting from its marketing and tourism. Last year, a district court judge dismissed the suit after ruling that the city simply being connected to a historical event does not provide a person with unlimited rights to seek compensation. Sound like limited rights. Plaintiffs appealed to the state Supreme Court, which upheld the lower court's decision to toss the suit. In the 8-1 decision, the justices noted that the law does not permit us to extend the scope of the public nuisance doctrine beyond what the legislator has authorized to afford plaintiffs the justice they are seeking. The ruling effectively ended the plaintiffs' court battle. Could we put the picture up of these people? Pictured here are Justices M. John Kane IV, Dustin Rowe, Yvonne Coger, James Winchester, Douglas Combs, Noma Gurich, Richard Darby, Dana Kuhn. Justice James E. Edmondson was the sole dissenting vote. However, court documents listed him as concurs in part and dissents in part. Ruling effectively ends the plaintiff's court battle. Still, Fletcher and Randle's legal team stated they plan to file a petition for rehearing with the Oklahoma Supreme Court to reconsider its decision, and a black star with that detail. Their attorneys argue that the destruction of Greenwood clearly meets the definition of a public nuisance under Oklahoma law and challenge the notion that Fletcher and Randle are asking members of the state's highest court to, quote, decide a political question in their consideration of the suit. Not a political question simply because the suit seeks to remedy wrongful acts perpetrated by a white mob against Black people. The court system is the very place where such harms are meant to be remedied, the attorney's statement to Atlanta Black Star read. Attorneys also called for the Department of Justice to launch an investigation into the massacre under the Emmett Till Unsolved Civil Rights Crime Act of 2007. That act, which the late Georgia Representative John Lewis introduced, was passed in 2008. It established offices within the DOJ and the FBI to investigate and prosecute racially motivated murders that took place on or before 1980. Thank you, John Lewis. Faithful application of the law compels the conclusion that Mother Randle and Mother Fletcher have stated a claim for relief. They are entitled to a trial In 103 years since the massacre, no court has held a trial addressing the massacre, and no individual or entity has been held accountable for it, the attorney stated. Nobody, and by the way, Tulsa does not have well, that's across the land, right? You murder somebody, there's no statute of limitations, I don't believe. I don't believe there is. Senator, I remember and I hated to even put it like this, a couple years ago, had the commemoration 100 years. Most people had not even been told about Greenwood and this mass murder that, the insurance companies, they got out of paying off policies that Black people dutifully paid into, saying, well, it's a riot. It's not a riot. It's a murder. A mob murdered them. But I remember the mayor of Tulsa, G.T. Bynum, at the time saying that, sympathies, thoughts, and prayers, basically. But this would do nothing but divide the city of Tulsa. And I remember being on live television at the time and saying the only thing that divided Tulsa was a white racist mob that murdered hundreds of people who still exist in mass graves today. And the city owes them. The city owes Greenwood and these descendants more than a highway running through their once storied community. What say you?
That part, I say amen to everything Sharon Reed said there. And to look in the faces of those elders, I know one died, but they're all three of them made it to live over 100 years. And as you laid out, Sharon, they were little children when this happened to their families. When you have these kind of elders, they went before Congress a few years ago too. All they got was photo ops and hugs and pats on the back. The Department of Justice, yes, the federal government needs to jump in here. If anybody, as Black people as a whole, those descendants of enslaved people, continue to fight for reparations in this country, and absolutely, the United States of America owes. Sharon, what better example than the living, breathing descendants of what happened in Greenwood, what happened in Tulsa? These elders are over 100 years old, and they lived through the massacre. A white mob came into an affluent, thriving Black community and killed upwards of 300 people, pillaged, stole their stuff, burned and bombed their city. Government is absolutely responsible for this, and it is government that should pay reparations to these survivors and their descendants, Sharon. This is despicable, and it is yet just another reminder that Black lives, when it comes down to it, do not really matter, and neither does Black pain. Because the people who are against reparations, they often say, you wasn't a slave and we didn't own slaves. You got two survivors who lived through it. If they don't deserve reparations, I don't know who does.
And, back to the insurance policy, and that's not reparation.
No.
These companies didn't just disappear. They morphed into other companies.
That's right.
They have records, Senator.
Yeah.
CNA, AIG, Insurance Company of Pennsylvania, Westchester Fire Insurance Company, the Hartford Great American Insurance Company. I would go on and on. North American, I had a policy with them. North River, California. They have the records, Senator.
They know, Sharon, this is a miscarriage of justice.
Yes,
is what it is. And we need to call it what it is. There's a whole movement afoot. So I would ask people who care about this issue, you want to learn more about this issue, the Zen History Project is one place where they can go to get more information, but there's a whole movement afoot and people should get involved. It is a disgrace.
We're not going to let it go.
No.
You owe us, and it's not begging.
No, it's old.